my friends, viewers, and followers. I'm so glad you tuned back in for this episode of Philothea, and you can see we have an Advent theme. It's kind of preparation for Advent. I really want you to enjoy this Advent time, really get into the mood of Advent. So I hope we together can do that in the preparation for Christmas. As you can see, I also painted my toenails. They're red, and actually there's a little sparkle on it, but I don't know if you can actually see it. I think in the lighting you might be able to tell because it's a little bit more shiny. Okay. So we're gonna continue on Fridays with the Philothea. Detraction. Rash judgment leads to disquiet, contempt for others, and pride and self-complacency, and 100 other evils, amongst which slander stands prominent, the very pest of society. O for a live coal from off God's altar, wherewith to touch the lips of men, that their iniquity might be taken away, and their sin purged, even as the teraphim purified the mouth of the prophet Isaiah 6:6. So God took a hot coal to clean his tongue, actually. Whoever unjustly deprives his neighbor of his good name is guilty of sin, and is further bound to make reparation according to his slander. No man can enter heaven with another's goods, and of all worldly goods, none is equal to a good reputation. So, especially on social media, it's so easy to take someone's reputation, especially falsely. And even if it is, you don't have to take somebody else's reputation. Really, it's a sin. The noise in the background is actually my little dog teasing my big dog with a bone. My big dog already ate his, and the little one is just showing off that he still has one, and he's in his little crate, so the big one can't get to it. So if you hear any banging noises in the background, that is what is happening. I actually can show you for a minute. Let me show you. What's happening there? See the big dog laying in front of the crate waiting, and he can't get to it. So I thought you might have fun with it. Just seeing what the banging in the background here is. So let's continue. Slander is a kind of murder. For we have three lives: the spiritual life, which consists of the grace of God; the corporal life, which is in the soul; and the civil life, which consists of our reputation. Sin destroys the first meaning our spiritual life; death the second, which is our soul; and slander the third, which is our civil life, here our reputation. But the slanderer is guilty of a triple murder with his tongue. He destroys his own soul and that of his hearer by a spiritual homicide, and deprives the object of his slander of civil existence. Now, you never maybe thought about this, but the evil that you're speaking first yourself and over your own life before you speak it over somebody else. Saint Bernard says that Satan has hold both of the slanderer and of him who hearkens to slander, for that he has the tongue of one and the ear of the other. David, speaking of slanderers, says, they have sharpened their tongues like serpents, Psalm 139. Aristotle says that the serpent's tongue is forked, having 2 points, and such is the tongue of the slanderer, who with one stroke wounds and poisons the ear of the listener and the reputation of him whom he slanders. See, you become almost like a dumpster for somebody else. If somebody else is always talking badly about other people, first of all, know that they're also talking bad about you. If you think they are only talking about other people but never about you, that's not true. Let me tell you, somebody that talks bad about other people will talk bad about you. And you become their dumpster. It's really dump. They're dumping their trash into your ears. I beseech you, therefore, never to speak ill of anyone, either directly or indirectly. Be aware of falsely imputing crimes and sins to your neighbor, of disclosing his secret faults, of exaggerating those which are obvious, of interpreting good actions ill, of denying the good which you know to be in any, or of maliciously concealing it or lessening it. For all these things grievously offend God. Above all, of falsely accusing another or denying the truth to his prejudice, which involves the double sin of falsehood and injury. The most refined and venomous slanderers are those who pretend to mean well, or craftily insinuate their poison by means of jests and banter. I really love him very much, one will say, and altogether he is a good man, but in truth he was so wrong to commit that breach of trust, or that woman is highly virtuous. It is a pity that she slipped once. Well, that's not the language that we would use anymore. We have other means, but I hope you are getting the gist also. Do you not perceive the artifice? The archer draws his arrow as near to him as possible, but his object is that it should fly the farther, and whilst these men seem willingly to retain their slander within themselves, they really launch it by the more fiercely. Slander in the shape of a jest is worse than all. For a hemlock is not in itself a quick poison, and an antidote may easily be found. Yet, when taking in wine, it is incurable, and so slanderer, which by itself would go in at one ear and out of the other, remains in the mind of the listener when it is dressed up in some clever or witty saying. The venom of asps is under their lips, David says, Psalm 139. The sting of the asp is scarcely perceptible and only excites a trifling sensation, but let the system once receive the poison and there is no longer any cure. I don't know what actually asps is. I have no idea, but obviously poison. Do not publish that such a man is a drunkard, a thief, or an impure, because you have once known him guilty of such a thing. One act does not justify the name. The sun stood still once at Joseph's command, and another time it was darkened on account of our Savior's death. Yet no one would say that it was darkened either dark or motionless. So just because somebody slipped and fell into one sin, it doesn't mean that they are that sin. And to define someone just because of their faults is really something that we don't want. Nobody wants to be defined by their faults. Nobody wants to be defined with their weakness. We are more than that. And see, love covers a multitude of sin. So, you can talk to somebody about this. For example, you can tell somebody, I think you have a problem with so and so and so and so, drinking or, pornography or so. But don't go out in public and telling everybody about this. It's not love. Love covers that all. That doesn't mean that you can't go to them and tell them and try to help them, but try to help them and not just talk bad about them. Do not publish that such a man is a drunkard or a thief. We had that. Noah and Lot Were both drunk once, yet neither was a drunkard. Neither was St. Paul bloodthirsty because he had once shed blood, nor a blasphemer because he had once blasphemed. Before a man deserves an epithet of vicious, he must be advanced in or accustomed to vice. Therefore, it is unfair to call a man passionate or a thief, or because he has on some occasion been angry or dishonest. Because everybody slips and falls. We all have our weaknesses and we all run short. We don't want to be defined by that. If we don't want to be defined by it, no one else wants to. Even if a man has long been vicious, we run the risk of falsehood in calling him so. Simon the leper called Magdalene a sinner because she was formerly one, but he told a lie, for she was no longer a sinner, but a holy penitent, and our Savior himself undertook her defense. She was a prostitute before, but now she followed Jesus, so there was no right to call her a prostitute anymore. The proud Pharisee esteemed a publican as a great sinner, as unjust, an adulterer, or an extortioner. But he was strangely mistaken, for at that very time the publican was justified. Surely, if God's goodness is so great that in one instant we can obtain pardon and grace, how can we tell that he who was a sinner yesterday is the same today? People can change. God can change people, let me tell you. It's not that we can change, God can change us. Yesterday must not judge today, nor today yesterday. It is the last day which will give the final verdict. Thus, we can never pronounce a man to be wicked without danger of falsehood. If we must needs speak, we must say that he has been guilty of such an evil deed. At such a time, he misconducted himself, or he is now doing so. But we should not condemn today because of yesterday, nor yesterday because of today, still less tomorrow. You cannot, because one person is falling short on a certain day or a period of time, say that he's still doing that or judge him for the rest of his life. But whilst you give good heed to speak no evil concerning your neighbor, be aware of falling into the opposite extreme, as some do who, seeking to avoid slander, praise vice. If you come in the way of downright slander, do not defend him by calling him frank and honest spoken. Do not miscall dangerous freedoms by the name of simplicity and easiness, or call disobedience zeal, or arrogance self-respect. Do not fly from slander into flattery and indulgence of vice, but call evil evil without hesitation, and blame that which is blamable. By this means you will glorify God. I would add certain conditions. When you blame the vices of another, consider whether it is profitable or useful to those who hear to do so. If you just tell people just to tell people, it's not the right reason to speak. Thus, to dwell upon profligacy before a young is dangerous. It is safer simply to condemn everything of the sort, avoiding detail. Again, if you chance to be a leading person in society when such subjects are named, or your silence would give you an appearance of providing vice, then you should speak. If on the contrary you are an insignificant member of the company, do not assume the censorship. Above all, you must be exceedingly exact in what you say. Your tongue, when you speak of your neighbor, is as a knife in the hand of a surgeon who is going to cut between the nerves and tendons. Your stroke must be accurate and neither deeper nor slighter than what is needed. And whilst you blame the sin, always spare the sinner as much as possible. We may speak freely of notorious and infamous sinners, but still with clear charity and compassion, avoiding arrogance and presumption, and not rejoicing in one another's ill. which is the sure sign of an evil, cruel heart. Of the enemies of God and His church, we must needs speak openly, since in charity we are bound to give an alarm whenever the wolf is found amongst the sheep. Everyone thinks himself at liberty to judge and censor princes, and to decry whole nations according to his inclinations. Do not indulge this failing. It is displeasing to God and may involve you in numberless disputes. When you hear ill of anyone, refute the accusation if you can, in justice to do so. If not, apologize for the accused on account of his intentions. And if even that fails, deal compassionately with him, remembering yourself and calling to the mind of others that those who are preserved from sin owe it only to the grace of God, not from your own power. And thus, gently check the conversation. If you can, mention something else favorable about the accused. So, be careful not to point the finger too fast and too quickly, but let's, especially in this Advent time, be especially charitable to our neighbors. Practice good deeds, defend the helpless, and maybe the slander that you hear is not accurate. There's hardly a way to check facts at times, so don't be hasty to judge. God bless you. I hope to see you soon again in another episode of Philothea and, of course, the Advent specials. God bless you.